You're 25, Claire. Pack your bags and leave tonight.
Fine.
Wait! If you leave, who's paying our mortgage next month?
My parents threw me out on Christmas Eve for being too dependent. But when I carried my last suitcase to the front door, my mother did not ask where I would sleep. She asked, "How are we supposed to make the mortgage payment in January?" That was the moment I understood the truth. They had never wanted an independent daughter. They wanted an obedient bank account. Hello, my name is Claire Bennett. I was 25 years old when my family gave me the cruelest Christmas gift of my life, and the most useful one. Until that night, I lived with my parents in a two-story house outside Columbus, Ohio. It was the same house where my older brother Ryan and I had grown up. From the street, it looked warm and respectable. White siding, blue shutters, a wreath on the front door every December. Inside, the rules had always been different for Ryan and me. Ryan was 29. He had moved out twice and returned twice. Both times, my parents welcomed him home as if a soldier had returned from war. He slept in the larger bedroom, parked his truck in the garage, and paid nothing. When he lost a job after arguing with his manager, Dad called him a man who refused to be disrespected. When I worked overtime, Mom called me obsessed with money. When Ryan spent $400 on football tickets, he was enjoying his youth. When I bought a $40 pair of winter boots, I was irresponsible. Still, I kept telling myself that family was complicated, that my parents loved us differently but equally, that helping them was the right thing to do. I worked as a payroll specialist for a medical equipment company. My salary was not impressive, but I was careful. I packed my lunch, drove an 8-year-old Honda, and saved whatever remained. 3 years earlier, Dad's small construction business had begun to fail. Mom said they might lose the house. She cried at the kitchen table while unopened bills lay between us. I offered to help temporarily. Temporary became permanent. Every month, I transferred one's $850 into a joint household account. Mom said $900 covered my fair share of the mortgage. The rest paid electricity, gas, groceries, insurance, and several old debts. I also bought most of the food and quietly paid the property taxes 1 year, when Dad claimed a client had not paid him. Ryan contributed nothing. My mother's explanation was always the same. Your brother is rebuilding his life. Apparently, Ryan's life had been under construction for 11 years. Christmas Eve began almost peacefully. Snow pressed against the dining room windows. Ham, potatoes, green beans, and rolls covered the table. My grandmother's red candles burned beneath the chandelier. Ryan arrived late wearing a new leather jacket. He dropped into his chair, showed Dad a photograph of the motorcycle he planned to buy, and asked me to pass the gravy. Halfway through dinner, Dad placed his fork beside his plate. "Claire, your mother and I have made a decision." Mom stared at her food. Ryan's mouth already carried the beginning of a smile. Dad continued, "You're 25. It's time you moved out and started acting independent." For several seconds I thought he was joking. "What? You heard me?" he said. "Living with your parents at your age isn't healthy." I looked at Ryan. He was 29 and living in the room across the hall. "Does that rule apply to everyone?" I asked. Ryan laughed. "Don't drag me into your little crisis." Dad's face hardened. "Your brother's situation is different." "How?" "He's trying to get back on his feet." I looked down at Ryan's new jacket, the keys to his truck, and the photograph of the motorcycle on his phone. "And I'm paying this family's bills." Mom finally looked at me. "There you go again, putting a price on everything we've done for you." My stomach tightened. "I pay nearly $1,900 every month." Dad leaned forward. "And you get a roof over your head. Do you know what rent costs now?" I did. I also knew what their mortgage cost because I had seen the statement. The payment was $1,462. My contribution covered the entire mortgage and more. "When do you expect me to leave?" I asked. Dad took a drink of water. "Tonight would show us you're serious." Even Ryan stopped smiling for a second. Outside, the roads were covered in snow. It was nearly 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Most hotels were full or charging holiday prices. Mom gave a small sigh, as though Dad had proposed something reasonable but inconvenient. "You can take a week if you absolutely need it," she said. "But your attitude makes me think a clean break is best." I waited for the fear to arrive. Instead, something inside me became very quiet. "All right," I said. Dad blinked. "I'll leave tonight." Ryan laughed again. "Where are you going to go?" "Your imaginary penthouse." I stood, carried my plate to the sink, and went upstairs. My bedroom looked exactly as it had that morning, but it no longer felt like mine. I pulled 2 suitcases from the closet and began packing. 10 minutes later, Ryan leaned against my doorframe. "This is dramatic, even for you." I folded sweaters without looking at him. "Dad's trying to teach you a lesson. You're supposed to apologize." "For what?" for acting like you own the place because you help with a few bills. I stopped folding. A few bills. He shrugged. Whatever. You know how mom gets. Say you're sorry, and she'll calm dad down. That was the first clue that the dinner had been staged. They did not expect me to leave. They expected me to break. I packed faster. At the bottom of my desk drawer, I found a blue folder containing 3 years of bank statements, tax receipts, and copies of checks. I had started keeping records after mom once claimed I had missed a payment I knew I had made. I placed the folder in my laptop bag. Then I photographed my room, the furniture I had purchased, and every box I carried downstairs. Mom stood beside the Christmas tree with her arms folded. Dad watched television with the volume muted. Ryan poured himself another drink. Nobody offered to help. I loaded my suitcases, laptop bag, work clothes, and a box of family photographs into my car. I left behind my bed, dresser, television, and nearly everything else I had bought for the room. On my final trip, I carried a small overnight bag. My hand had just touched the brass doorknob when Mom spoke. Wait. I turned. For one foolish second, I thought she might hug me. I thought she might say this had gone too far. Instead, she asked, "What about the mortgage payment in January?" The room became completely silent. Dad looked at her sharply. Ryan lowered his glass. Mom realized what she had revealed, but it was too late. "I mean your contribution," she added quickly. "You still owe us until you find a permanent place." I looked at all 3 of them. "You're throwing me out tonight, but you expect me to keep paying the mortgage." Dad stood. "Don't twist your mother's words. Then explain them. You made a commitment to this family. And you just ended it." His face changed. The patient father disappeared, and the frightened debtor took his place. "Claire, if you walk out that door and stop paying, don't expect to come crawling back." I opened the door. Cold air swept into the hallway and made the Christmas lights tremble. "I won't," I said. Then, I stepped into the snow. I spent Christmas Eve in a highway hotel beside the interstate. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee. My Christmas dinner was crackers from a vending machine and a candy bar I found in my purse. At 11:43 p.m., my mother texted me, "You embarrassed your father. Come home tomorrow and apologize." At 11:51, Dad sent a second message. "January payment is still due on the 1st. We can discuss the rest later." At midnight, Ryan sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "Hope independence tastes good." I did not answer any of them. Instead, I opened my banking app. The household transfer was scheduled automatically for December 28. I canceled it. Then I removed Mom's access to a credit card I had added her to for emergencies. Over 2 years, emergencies had somehow included restaurant meals, salon visits, and new tires for Ryan's truck. When I checked the balance, I found a charge I did not recognize. $2,740 to Buckeye Power Sports. My hands went cold. Ryan had mentioned putting a deposit on a motorcycle. I called the credit card company's fraud department. The representative froze the card and opened an investigation. Then she asked, and that changed everything. "Ms. Bennett, did you authorize a balance transfer of $6,500 last March?" I sat upright on the hotel bed. "What balance transfer?" She read me the date and the destination account. It was a bank I recognized. The same bank that held my parents' mortgage. I had never authorized it. The representative explained that the request had been submitted online using my name, social security number, address, and security answers. Someone in my parents' house knew all of those things. I barely slept. On Christmas morning, my friend Maya called. We had worked together for 4 years, and she knew more about my family than anyone. The moment she heard my voice, she said, "What happened?" I told her everything. "Come stay with me," she said. "My guest room is full of boxes, but the couch is yours until we clear it." By noon, I was sitting at her kitchen table, while she made coffee and her golden retriever slept on my feet. Maya listened as I described the motorcycle charge and balance transfer. "Claire," she said carefully, "you need to check your credit report." I did. There were 2 accounts I did not recognize. The first was a store credit card opened 18 months earlier. It carried a balance of $3,200. The second was a personal loan for $14,000. The mailing address for both accounts was my parents' house. The phone number on the loan application belonged to my mother. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. This was not a misunderstanding. This was identity theft. The next morning, I called each lender, froze my credit, changed every password, and scheduled a meeting with an attorney named Evelyn Brooks. Evelyn was in her early 60s, with silver hair and a voice so calm that I trusted her immediately. She reviewed my bank statements, text messages, credit reports, and the blue folder from my desk. "Your records are excellent," she said. "Most people don't keep this much. My mother changes history when it becomes inconvenient." Evelyn looked over her glasses. "Then it's fortunate you kept a copy." She explained that we needed to separate 2 issues. The money I had willingly contributed might be difficult to recover, unless there was a written agreement. The accounts opened without my permission were different. Those were crimes. Do you want to file a police report? She asked. The question hurt more than I expected. Filing a report meant admitting my parents had not merely used me. They had stolen my identity. Not yet, I said. I want to know exactly what happened first. Evelyn nodded. Then we investigate. But do not warn them. That afternoon, my father called 12 times. I finally answered on the 13th. Where is the payment? He demanded. No hello, no Merry Christmas, no question about whether I was safe. You told me to be independent. This isn't a game, Claire. The bank will charge us a late fee. Then Ryan can pay. Dad laughed once, without humor. Your brother doesn't have that kind of money. He has enough for a motorcycle. Silence. Then Dad said, What are you talking about? He was a poor liar. He became too formal when he was frightened. A 2740 charge was made to my card. Maybe you forgot something. I didn't. My mother's voice sounded in the background. Ask her if she canceled the grocery card. I closed my eyes. Even then, their concern was access. Put Mom on the phone. There was a rustle, then her voice. Claire, this rebellion has gone far enough. Did you open accounts in my name? She did not answer. Mum, after everything we've sacrificed for you, I can't believe you're irrigating me over family expenses. That was not a denial. Which expenses? Your father needed help. Ryan needed transportation. This family was under pressure. So you used my identity. Your credit was better than ours. She said it as if that explained everything. How much? Don't be selfish. How much debt did you put in my name? Dad took the phone. You are not speaking to your mother that way. Then tell me the amount. Come home, restore the transfers, and we'll discuss it privately. There it was, the real plan. Throw me out, frighten me. Make me apologize. Keep my money coming while teaching me not to ask questions. All future communication goes through my attorney, I said. Dad's voice dropped. You hired a lawyer against your own parents. No, I hired one to protect me from the people using my name. I ended the call. 5 minutes later, Ryan texted. You're destroying this family over money. I replied with one sentence. Return the motorcycle deposit. He blocked me. The mystery deepened 3 days later when Evelyn obtained documents from the personal loan company. The application included my electronic signature. It also listed the purpose of the loan. Home renovation. No renovation had ever happened. But the $14,000 had been deposited into an account held jointly by my mother and Ryan. By New Year's Eve, I had moved into a small furnished apartment 15 minutes from work. It had one bedroom, thin walls, and a view of a grocery store parking lot. It was perfect. The first night I sat on the floor eating Chinese takeout because I had no table. For the first time in years, nobody asked what I had spent. Nobody opened my mail. Nobody called me selfish for closing my bedroom door. Freedom felt quiet. Then the next secret arrived. The fraud investigator from the credit card company emailed security records connected to the disputed motorcycle charge. The purchase had been made in person. The dealership had copied the buyer's driver's license. The buyer was Ryan. But the signature on the receipt was mine. He had forged it. I called Evelyn. Now, she asked. I knew what she meant. Was I ready to file the police report now? Yes. The detective assigned to the case was named Marcus Hill. He did not treat me like a dramatic daughter seeking revenge. He asked precise questions, collected copies, and warned me not to confront anyone. People who feel entitled to your money often become dangerous when the money stops, he said. That sentence stayed with me. 2 days later, my grandmother called. Dad's mother, Grandma June, was 81 and sharper than everyone else in our family combined. Your mother says you abandoned them on Christmas, she said. Did she mention they ordered me to leave? There was a pause. No. I told her what happened, including the debt. Grandma June listened without interrupting. Then she asked, Did they tell you about the refinance? My heart began to pound. What refinance? She sighed. I was afraid of that. 3 years earlier, when my parents claimed they might lose the house, Grandma June had given them $40,000. They told her the money would reduce the mortgage balance and stabilize their finances. 6 months later, they refinanced the house. Mom had apparently told Grandma that I was a co-borrower and had agreed to help repay the new loan. I had agreed to nothing. Evelyn searched the county property records. The refinance documents did not list me as a borrower. That was the good news. The bad news was that my parents had pulled $62,000 in cash from the house. Where had it gone? We found part of the answer in an email Ryan accidentally forwarded to me. The message was intended for Dad. It contained a spreadsheet titled Bien-être Femelle Investiments. Ryan tried to recall the email, but I had already downloaded the attachment. The spreadsheet showed payments to an online sports betting platform, cash advances, a failed landscaping business registered in Ryan's name, and deposits toward the motorcycle. My parents had not been struggling because Dad's business failed. They had been funding Ryan. They used Grandma's $40,000. They drained $62,000 from the house. They opened $17,200 in debt under my name. And for 3 years, my monthly payments had kept the entire structure from collapsing. Ryan had laughed while I packed because he believed I would return. They all did. Their spreadsheet even included a line labeled CLD's ald Taridarat.io. Parau J. Stide. They had projected my payments for the next 5 years. 5 years. They had already spent money I had not earned yet. I sat in Evelyn's office staring at that line. I want to recover everything I legally can, I said. We'll pursue the fraudulent debt and unauthorized charges. She replied, but your parents' finances are collapsing. Recovery may be limited. Then I want the truth on the record. She studied me. That is something we can accomplish. The late mortgage notices began in January. Mom sent photographs of the envelopes. Look what you're doing to us. Dad left a voicemail saying the pipes would freeze because he could not pay the gas bill. Ryan created a new number and texted, if Grandma has a heart attack when she learns you're making us homeless, that's on you. But Grandma already knew. In fact, she had hired her own attorney. The 40 Zalozen had not been a simple gift. Grandma's attorney found a signed promissory note Dad had conveniently forgotten. The balance became due if the property was refinanced or sold. Dad had refinanced it. He owed Grandma the entire amount. Then the police contacted Ryan about the forged motorcycle receipt. That was when the family's story changed. Suddenly, they did not say I was dependent. They said I was unstable. Mom told relatives I had invented the fraud because I was jealous of Ryan. Dad said my attorney was manipulating me. Ryan claimed I had given him permission and forgotten. So I stopped defending myself in private. Evelyn prepared a formal demand letter with copies of the loan application, dealership receipt, account records, and spreadsheet. She sent it to my parents, Ryan, and their attorney. The letter demanded repayment, surrender of all documents containing my personal information, and written acknowledgement that I had not authorized the accounts. They had 14 days to respond. On day 13, Mom invited the entire family to dinner. The invitation said she wanted peace and reconciliation. A grandma called me. It's a trap, she said. I know. Are you going? I looked at the evidence folder on my kitchen counter. Less. Then I'm going with you. The dinner was scheduled for the first Sunday in February. When I arrived, the house looked almost unchanged. The Christmas wreath was gone, but pale marks remained where it had touched the blue door. Inside, a dozen relatives sat in the living room. Mom had created an audience. Dad stood beside the fireplace. Ryan occupied my old chair. My mother opened her arms as though expecting a hug. Claire, thank God. We can finally end this. I did not move. Evelyn entered behind me. Then Grandma June walked in with her attorney. Ryan's face lost its color. Mom lowered her arms. Why did you bring lawyers to a family dinner? Grandma answered before I could. Because you brought an audience to a confession. Nobody touched the food. Mom had arranged the dining room as carefully as she had on Christmas Eve. The good dishes were out, candles burned. A roast waited beneath foil. This time, I understood the performance. She wanted witnesses to see her as a heartbroken mother. She wanted me to look cruel. Dad began with a speech. Families make mistakes, he said. But decent people do not call the police on their own blood. Several relatives looked at me. I placed the blue folder on the table. Decent people don't steal their daughter's identity. A mom's eyes filled with tears immediately. We never stole anything. Every dollar was used for this family. Evelyn removed the dealership receipt. Was the motorcycle for the family? Ryan shifted in his chair. Dad pointed at him. That was Ryan's mistake. He'll handle it. It was the first time I had ever heard my father hold Ryan responsible for anything. Ryan stared at him in disbelief. You told me she wouldn't care, he said. The room went still. Dad's jaw tightened. Be quiet. But Ryan had finally realized he was being selected as the sacrifice. No, he snapped. You said Claire would keep paying. You said she always complains, then does what Mom wants. A mom whispered his name as a warning. Ryan pointed at her. You opened the loan. You filled out the application. A mom's tears stopped. Dad looked at the relatives surrounding the table and seemed to understand that the performance was collapsing. This conversation is over. A Grandma June placed her promissory note beside my evidence. No, it isn't. A dad's face went gray. Grandma explained the $40,000 loan, the refinance condition, and the unpaid balance. Her attorney then handed Dad a formal demand for repayment. Mother, you can't be serious. I was serious when I trusted you. When Mom stood so quickly that her chair struck the wall. What do you all expect us to do? Sell the house. I looked around the dining room. I remembered every bill I had paid to keep its lights on. Every weekend I had skipped with friends. Every lunch I had packed. Every apology I had made for asking where my own money went. Yes, I said. Mom stared at me. You would make your parents homeless. No. I stopped preventing the consequences of your choices. She pressed a hand to her chest. After we let you live here for 25 years. I almost laughed. I was your child for 18 of them. For the last 3, I was your mortgage plan. Dad tried one final threat. If you go through with this, you are no longer our daughter. The words hurt. Of course they hurt. Justice does not erase love. Sometimes it only proves that love was offered to people who did not protect it. But I no longer confuse pain with a command to surrender. You ended that relationship on Christmas Eve, I said. You just expected the payments to survive it. And Evelyn presented their options. They could cooperate with the fraud investigation, sign acknowledgments for the lenders, and agree to a repayment plan. Or we could continue through criminal and civil proceedings without their cooperation. Ryan folded first. He admitted forging my signature at the dealership. He returned the motorcycle deposit, sold his truck, and agreed to restitution as part of a plea arrangement. He received probation, mandatory financial counseling, and community service. My mother admitted opening the store card and personal loan using my identity. Because she cooperated and had no prior record, the final judgment included probation and restitution rather than jail. Dad insisted he knew nothing. The spreadsheet and text messages proved otherwise. He had helped plan how my monthly payments would cover the debt. The court did not accept his innocence simply because Mom had clicked the buttons. The fraudulent accounts were removed from my credit report after months of paperwork. The lenders closed them, and the restitution order covered the losses that remained. My parents sold the house in May. After the mortgage, Grandma's claim, taxes, and fees were paid, very little equity remained. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. Ryan was not invited to live with them. That detail felt almost poetic. For the first time in his adult life, my brother had to support himself. For the first time in years, my parents had to live on the money they actually earned. And for the first time in my life, I was not responsible for rescuing any of them. My relatives eventually apologized. Some said they had believed Mom's version because she cried so convincingly. Others admitted they had noticed the favoritism for years, but thought it was none of their business. I accepted a few apologies. I did not restore every relationship. Forgiveness are not the same thing. By the following Christmas, my life looked completely different. I had been promoted to senior payroll analyst. My credit score had recovered. I moved from the furnished apartment into a small house with a narrow porch and a kitchen that received sunlight every morning. The place was not grand, but every key belonged to me. Maya helped me decorate. Grandma June brought her red candles. We invited 2 coworkers, an elderly neighbor, and a young woman from Maya's office, who could not afford to fly home. At 6 o'clock, snow began falling. For a moment, I stood at the window and remembered the previous Christmas. The packed suitcases, Ryan's laughter, Dad's threat, and Mom's question at the door. Grandma came to stand beside me. Do you miss them? She asked. I answered honestly. I miss who I thought they were. She squeezed my hand. That evening, my phone buzzed once. It was a message from Mom. Merry Christmas. We hope someday you remember that family matters more than money. I read it twice. Then I typed family mattered to me. That's why I paid. Money mattered to you. That's why you threw me out but asked the payments to stay. I did not send it. I no longer needed her to understand. I deleted the draft, silenced my phone, and returned to the dining room. Maya was laughing. Grandma was lighting the red candles. People who had asked nothing from me except my company were taking their seats around my table. Before dinner, Grandma raised her glass. To Claire, she said. The most independent person I know. Everyone smiled. So did I. My parents believed independence meant leaving their house while continuing to finance their lives. They were wrong. Independence was not the suitcase I carried through the snow. It was the moment I stopped paying for a place where my love had been mistaken for weakness. And that was the last Christmas anyone ever charged me for the privilege of being family.